Hi everybody, my name's Katie Giles. I'm one of the primary English and literacy consultants working for Lancashire Professional Development Service. This vlog today is all about purpose and audience when analysing and writing texts. Okay, so we're going to start with the importance of purpose and audience. It is arguably the most important piece of that writing jigsaw because it underpins the composition and effect of every single piece of writing. Imagine asking the children to just write a letter, okay? The children might be able to have a really good go because they know some of the features of a letter. They might have written letters before. However, you haven't told them what the purpose and what the audience of that letter is. So is the purpose of the letter to inform your friend of a holiday you've just been on? Or is the letter to complain to a local member of the council? Both letters have two different audiences and two different purposes, and therefore the content of those letters would be very, very different. So it's really, really important that children have a clear purpose and audience. Otherwise, writing can often just become a list of skills on a page. Yes, fantastic, you've used a relative clause. Yes, fantastic, I can see a fronted adverbial for when. But actually, when I sit back and read that piece as a whole, it doesn't carry much meaning because I haven't got a clear purpose and I haven't got a clear audience. So making sure that you provide children with well thought out tasks is vital for producing those high quality pieces. So careful consideration always needs to go into what task am I asking my children to do? What is the purpose? What is the audience? Because that's going to really help support children with those quality pieces. Okay, as we've just said, it's vital that children are provided with well thought out tasks. So we're now going to look at some tasks that have been set up for children to write within. And we're going to read some contexts, and we're going to consider which of these contexts provide children with the best opportunity to succeed with their writing. So let's have a look at the first context. We have, as part of a theme on their local environment, pupils were asked to create a persuasive leaflet for a tourist information centre based on a local attraction they had recently visited. In addition to researching and visiting the attraction, pupils explored persuasive leaflets already available in the centre before creating their own. So we have a very clear purpose here. It is to create a persuasive leaflet based on a local attraction. Okay, in terms of audience, that would obviously be informed by what the local attraction is. Who would want to visit that local attraction? Now, from this context, we don't know what that local attraction is. So we, as readers of this context, wouldn't necessarily know what the audience is. But if this was set up in class, you would be very clear in terms of what that attraction is, where the children have visited, and who would want to go there, and that would obviously then inform the language that we use. So in terms of a setup of a task, we've got children exploring persuasive leaflets. They've visited the attraction, so they are immersed within that attraction before they are then asked to write. They've also been to the Tourist Information Centre and had a look at persuasive leaflets before creating their own. Second one, pupils were asked to write a persuasive argument on a topic of their choice. Okay, so with this one, we have a purpose to write a persuasive argument, but we don't have a clear topic. Now, that might mean that some children would struggle with this task because they are open to choosing their own topic, and depending on what topic they choose will then inform the audience. Now, in terms of setting this up as a task in your class, consider, would this provide children with the best opportunity to succeed with their writing? If we look at the next one, as part of a theme on entrepreneurs, pupils in Year 4 were asked to write an information text based on a new product for school that they had designed. So with this one, in terms of the purpose, we've got that children are writing an information text based on a new product that they've designed, but we don't know who the audience is. Are they writing that information text for children in year 2, or are they writing that information text for the head teacher? So again, being very clear in terms of both the purpose and audience can support children in creating good outcomes. Let's have a look at the final one. During a focus on Black history, pupils in year 5 were asked to create a non-chronological report for their parents based on influential Black people throughout history. Before writing their report, pupils were immersed in reading and listening to many books based on Black people throughout time. Pupils explored video clips linked to influential people and gathered notes on key individuals based on what they had read and watched. Pupils delivered oral presentations to the class based on selected individuals and then explored the key features of successful information text before beginning their own. Okay, so if we look at that context in terms of the purpose, we've got the children writing non-chronological reports for their parents to inform them of influential Black people throughout history. So we have a very clear purpose, and the audience is their parents. You can also see that before writing that report, pupils have spent quality time being immersed in reading and listening to many books based on Black people. They've had time to deliver oral presentations before them being asked to write their non-chronological reports. So in terms of a task and how that task has been set up, you can see that children have got a really good opportunity to succeed with their writing. So a resource that you might find really useful to use with your class when analysing and writing text is an English team resource known as the PALS grid or PALS pyramid. PALS being an acronym for Purpose, Audience, Language and Structure. So if we have a look at the PALS grid here, you can see that this can be used for both analysing text and for children before they are to write a text. This can be enlarged to A3. You can have them laminated so children can annotate and teachers can annotate upon them. You can have them printed out for children to pop in their books. But whenever we are about to analyse a text, or if we are about to write our own text, we can use a PALS grid to support us with that. So you can see at the top of the pyramid, first and foremost, we need to know what the purpose of the writing is for, what is it trying to do. We then have a section for the audience next, so who is the intended audience. Then we have our gorgeous language toolkit. So any useful vocabulary that we can identify, or if we're about to write our own, what useful vocabulary might we use, any specific genre features, and any specific writing skills that would lend themselves nicely to that text type. And we also at the bottom of the pyramid have a section for structure. So how will the writing be organised? What layout will you use if children have to write their own? And if we're analysing text, we can have a really close look at how that text has been structured. So it's a really useful resource to have in your classroom and to use with your children. If we look at using it to analyse a text, this is a text taken from the book Fantastically Great Women Who Worked Wonders, a gorgeous text by Kate Pankhurst. And this specific page is an information page all about Katherine Johnson. Okay, so first and foremost, when analysing text, the first thing you would do is let the children read and enjoy. They might have come across this text quite a few times before we start to analyse it. Okay, but if we then got our PALS grid and started to analyse this text, we could start to think about, right, first and foremost, what is the purpose of this writing? Why has this text been written? Okay, so we can see this is a text about Catherine Johnson. So this text type is to provide information about a person of interest. So it's almost a hybrid. It's an information text, but it's also a mini biography. So we've got a hybrid here. We've got an information text, but we've also got a biography, because as we read, we can see that it goes in chronological order, outlining the key events within Catherine's life. Okay. If we were to ask the children, right, who do you think the audience is? Okay. Who do you think the audience is? Who do you think would want to read this? Now, if you know much about Catherine Johnson, or you've had chance to read this text, you will know that Catherine Johnson was a very influential woman who worked for NASA. So our audience might be people who are interested in space or interested in influential people. However, we've also got a few more clues in terms of how the text has been written. And this is where you might start to annotate or highlight parts of the text that jump out. So you can see in terms of that audience, straight away, I can just see visually that we've got cartoons. We've got lots of speech bubbles. The way the text is written is quite colloquial. We've got arrows that are sending us to different parts. So in terms of who that audience might be, it's probably going to be an audience who are either children or young adults, okay? The way that the information is presented to me visually suggests that it is for a young audience rather than for adults, okay? Then we can start to look closely as to why that is. So can we pull out any useful vocabulary that's used within this text type? Have we got any specific genre features that have been used? Have we got any specific writing skills that have been used too? So therefore, what you can see is I've started to highlight some key vocabulary. We've got words that are specific to this subject. So we've got technical vocabulary such as things of segregation, okay, the space race, we've got Freedom 7 mission, we've got words like orbit and high profile. We might start to pull those out as useful vocabulary for when you are talking about a specific person, okay, and this being Catherine Johnson. Then when we start to look at genre features, okay, we can see that this has been written in chronological order. It is a biography, an information text about Catherine Johnson. So we have got fronted adverbials for time that show what that specific paragraph is talking about. So we've got here in the 1950s, you've got another one here in 1960, 1962, during her 33-year career, okay? And we can see that there are specific writing skills that have been used. So what you can see is that I have filled out the PALS grid and I would analyse that with the children. So the purpose, we've got to provide information about a person of interest, that being Catherine Johnson. We've got an audience, which is our children and young adults who may be interested in space and influential people. And then the language, I pulled out some useful vocabulary. We've got segregation, vital part, the space race, credited, Freedom 7 mission, orbit, high profile. In terms of genre features, it is in past tense, okay? It's in past tense. We've got it in third person. We've got specific vocabulary that relates to Catherine Johnson that we've started to pull out. We've got those adverbials for time. We've got chronological order, and we've got some causal conjunctions being used too. In terms of writing skills, specific writing skills, now this might be an example that you use for lower key stage 2. So when we start to think about the writing skills that children use in lower key stage 2, say year 3 and year 4, we can see that, oh, we've got some fronted adverbials for when. Okay, so we can see that that is a specific writing skill that lends itself nicely to this text type. We've got nouns for precision, and we've also got some causal conjunctions. In terms of how it's been structured, we can see that we have opening paragraphs, that gives almost the overview, it sets the scene. So we can see this opening paragraph, there wasn't a calculation too complicated for the extraordinarily talented mathematician Catherine Johnson. She was a bright star, but because of segregation, Catherine had to fight to shine. Segregation laws in the USA of that time stopped Black people from having the same opportunities as white people. So we have that opening paragraph that sets the scene, and then from then we have additional paragraphs that provide further information. We also have some fact boxes. Okay, we have some fact boxes that provide more information and clarification. So we've got the space race here, and then we've got this fact box that gives you a little bit more information about what the space race was. And then we've also got images to support our understanding of the text. And we've also got labels as well and speech bubbles that provide some extra information. So therefore, we have completed and analysed that text type using our PALS grid. So this is an example that might be used in upper key stage 2. It's again an information text hybrid. It's an information text that is a hybrid with a biography. But this time it's around William Shakespeare, and it's taken from this text in the bottom right hand corner, which is The Life and Times of William Shakespeare by Ari Berg. Okay, and I have just chosen to focus on a specific page within this text for the children to read and enjoy and then to analyse. So if we have a look, you can see that I've already done the analysis for this PALS grid. Now, obviously, you would do this with the children and model it through. So in terms of the purpose, we can agree that the purpose for this text is to provide information about a person of interest. This time, it's William Shakespeare. Okay. It is an information text / biography. We have got information on the page, but we've also got a biography as well. In terms of the audience, this time, it could be children, it could be young adults, but it could also be adults who are interested in Shakespeare. So in terms of the language structures and how this information is presented, it could span from children all the way up to adults who are interested in finding information out about Shakespeare. Okay. So then when we start to focus in on the language toolkit, I have pulled out some useful vocabulary. So I have focused on words such as dwell, tradesman, centuries, cherished, infancy, and bubonic plague. Some of those words I have pulled out because they are specific to biographies, or they might be words that children will use in their own biographies that can support that writing. So words such as centuries and cherished, the children and infancy, they might use within their own information biography hybrids. But I've also pulled out some words that are specific to this topic as well. So William Shakespeare and of the times. So things such as bubonic plague. Okay, they're technical vocabulary that maybe the children don't know, but also are relevant to that time and to that specific person. Then I've looked at genre features. So in terms of this text, it's both past tense and present tense. So we've got parts of it in past tense, and we've also got some parts of it that are written in present tense. We've got specific vocabulary relating to that person. We've got adverbials for time used again, chronological order, and causal conjunctions. And in terms of the writing skills, you can see there that lots of cohesive devices are used, which is a year 6 specific skill that the children need to focus on. So we've got the use of fronted adverbials to create that cohesion. We've got causal conjunctions, and we've also got the use of nouns for precision. Okay. In terms of how that text has been structured, it's a little bit different to the one that we looked at that might be for lower key stage 2, in that we have the main biography on the left and the right hand side of this double page spread. So that is the part that is written in third person and is written in chronological order. But then within the centre of this page, we also have some non-chronological information as well. So we have some diary entries. We have a diary entry here. We have some instructions. We have some quotes from Shakespeare's plays. We have some images as well. Okay, so you can see how this is a biography information text hybrid. And you can see how using that PALS grid has helped us to analyse that text closely. So now I've shown you how to use a PALS grid to analyse text. We're now going to look at how you can use a PALS grid to inform the planning and writing of text. So you can use a PALS grid before the children do a modelled piece of writing or a scaffolded piece, okay? So what I would do as the teacher is model completing a PALS grid before I model to the children how to write that text type. So for example here, I have completed a PALS grid, okay? So first and foremost, what is the purpose of my writing? Well, we've just been analysing that gorgeous Shakespeare text. So now I'm going to write my own information text hybrid with a biography based on the person of interest, who is Gertrude Ederle. Okay. Who is my audience? Well, Gertrude Ederle was the first woman to cross the English Channel. So it might be children who are interested in swimming, people of interest, or adventurous people. And I'm going to make sure that my information text but hybrid with a biography is for children. Okay. Any useful vocabulary that I want to use? Well, yeah, I'm going to have to use the English Channel. Okay, that's one I'm definitely going to be using that. I might talk about strong currents, okay? I might talk about stroke, and I might also use the word gramophone, okay? In terms of the genre features, well, I'm going to make sure that it's just past tense, okay? It's going to be written in third person. I'm going to have specific vocabulary that relates to Gertrude. I'm going to be using my adverbials for time to show that it's written in chronological order. And I'm also going to be using some causal conjunctions. And in terms of those writing skills, well, I'm going to draw on what I saw from the analysis, and I'm going to be using those cohesive devices. So I'm going to have my fronted adverbials for when, I'm going to have my causal conjunctions, and I'm also going to be using those nouns for precision. Now, how am I going to structure my text? Well, I'm going to have that opening paragraph that gives that overview. So it introduces Gertrude. And then I'm going to have my subsequent paragraphs in chronological order. And I might have some extra information provided in fact boxes. And I might have some images and labels similar to the Catherine Johnson example we saw before. Once I have modelled that to the children, I would then give children time to create their own PALS grid based on my example, okay? So they might have their own person of interest that they are going to be writing their information text hybrid on, or they could be doing the same one of Gertrude Ederle, but they might choose different vocabulary. They might choose to structure theirs slightly differently, depending on their audience. PALS grids can also be used to inform the planning and writing of independent pieces. So for independent pieces, we might provide children with a blank PALS grid to complete before they write their independent piece. Now, in order for children to use the PALS grids effectively, independently, they're going to have to be well versed within the template before they use it for their independent pieces. That being that we've used the PALS grid lots of times to analyse different texts, and we've also used the PALS grids plenty of times within scaffolded pieces. Once the children are well versed using their PALS grid, when it comes to an independent piece, they can use it again just to plan out that structure, really making sure they focus in on what the purpose and audience is, the specific language features they want to use, and how that text is going to be structured. And that can support them in having more effective written outcomes independently. A few purpose and audience top tips to end on. Teachers' subject knowledge. Are teachers well versed in the features specific to each text type? Do they know what the specific features of a non-chronological report are? Do they know what the specific features of a biography are? Do they know what the specific features of a persuasive letter are? And do they know how they progress across each year group? So what is the difference between a year 2 class writing a non-chronological report to a year 6 class as writing a non-chronological report? How do they progress through the year groups, and what are the expectations that we have within school within the same text types? Provide children with plenty of opportunities to examine text for their purpose, audience, language and structure, both for fiction and non-fiction. The more opportunity children have to explore and analyse lots of text for their purpose, audience and language and structure, the more informed they will be when they come to write their own. Carefully consider the written tasks that we are giving to the children within our classes. Do they always have a clear purpose and audience? If they don't, are we just getting that skills on a page? So making sure that the children really know what the purpose of the writing is and who the audience are. Model completing PALS grids before embarking on a written task. Ensure that you as a teacher always model that completion of a PALS grid before you ask the children to write their own and create their own. So we always fill in as a class, the teacher modelling a PALS grid. I then model how to transfer that information from the PALS grid to my written outcome, and then the children have a go using their own PALS grid. And make sure you give the children plenty of time to do that. Consider providing children with the same purpose but different audiences across the year to allow children to demonstrate different levels of formality. So it might be across the year we have the same purpose, to persuade, but each time that we write using persuasion, we use a different audience. So it might be that we write to persuade our best friend of something at the start of the year. And then at another point in the year, we might have another opportunity to write a persuasive piece. But this time, instead of it being to our best friend, we're going to do it to a local council member. And then the next time we write our persuasive piece, we're going to write that persuasive piece to a member of the royal family. Hopefully, across those 3 pieces, because they have the same purpose to persuade, the children will be able to demonstrate that they can write for different audiences and then therefore use different levels of formality. If we always give the children the same audience, either another class within school or the head teacher, the children are always going to just write on that level of formality. What we want the children to do is have the opportunity to demonstrate that they can write for different audiences. And finally, make sure that you are using PALS grids to support children within their own independent tasks too. Okay, so once we've had all that gorgeous modelling of using PALS grids, we want to then make sure that we give children opportunity to use those before they embark on an independent task. So that's the end of the Purpose and Audience vlog. Hopefully that's been useful. I will see you very, very soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.